In a quiet suburb of Buffalo, Dan Morgan seems like your average devoted family man, a top car salesman who knows exactly what makes people tick. He's earned Employee of the Month so many times it's become routine. And while his eccentric coworker Hal flaunts his masculinity in flashy rides and loud entrances, Dan is focused on getting home early to celebrate his anniversary with his wife Jessica and their 3 kids. The rebellious college-bound daughter Nina, the socially awkward teen gamer Kyle, and their youngest, Max. At home, cracks begin to show. Nina wants to abandon her journalism dreams for a boyfriend in Iowa. Kyle hides his double life as a famous streamer known as Killboy. And Jessica, though still in love, feels the dull ache of routine in their otherwise peaceful life. At their anniversary carnival date, Dan tries to break the mold with a roller coaster ride. But when a punk teen disrespects them and spills a drink on Dan, he chooses to walk away instead of retaliate, causing Jessica to question the fire that once drew her to him. Back home, Dan reflects on the incident with quiet frustration, while Jessica vents during a kickboxing class where she bonds with a mysterious woman named Gwen, who offers a tempting escape from her dull domestic life. The next day, while shopping with Max, Dan is suddenly attacked by a stranger, yet his combat instincts flare to life as he expertly neutralizes the threat. Alarm bells ringing, Dan rushes home and reveals a secret stash hidden behind the wall: passports, stacks of cash, and enough weaponry to wage a war. Dan contacts Augie, an old associate, and learns that McCaffrey, the dangerous man he once worked for, is hunting him down after a photo from the carnival outed him. With 3 days to disappear, Dan makes a split-second decision to relocate the entire family under the guise of a spontaneous road trip to Las Vegas. He lies, manipulates, and bribes his way through gathering the family, dragging Nina from under the school bleachers and confronting Kyle at his secret streaming setup in a friend's garage. Jessica is suspicious of Dan's sudden enthusiasm for change, but impressed enough to agree. As they flee town, black SUVs appear, and Dan's dangerous driving draws questions from Jessica and the kids. Realizing they're being tracked, Dan slips the GPS device onto Hal's test drive car and misleads the mercenaries. From that point on, it's a chaotic escape mission disguised as a family road trip. Dan confiscates everyone's phones, claiming it's a tech detox, and throws them away. As they navigate using dusty paper maps, the kids grumble, but a spontaneous sing-along to Ice Ice Baby hints at something deeper rekindling within the family. Meanwhile, McCaffrey's men discover Kyle's streaming identity and use it to track them, enlisting a biker gang to intercept the van. During a tense highway sequence, Dan takes down the attackers while the family unknowingly bobs their heads to lullaby music, only Max fully aware, helping his dad like a tiny partner in crime. As dawn breaks, the family detours near Nina's dream college. Under the pretense of sightseeing, Nina confronts her cheating boyfriend Trevor, and after some emotional whiplash, Dan teaches her an ancient martial arts move to cause sharp pain without lasting injury. Nina uses it and regains her self-worth, finally seeing her father as more than just a safe, boring dad. They hit the road again, tighter than ever. At a dingy motel, Jessica and Dan reconnect intimately, drawn to this bold, unpredictable man she hadn't seen in years. Dan confesses he changed his life for her, and not the other way around. The next morning, Augie updates Dan that their new identities are ready, but Dan still hasn't told his family they'll have to abandon their lives. Meanwhile, Kyle and Dan bond over a game of laser tag. If Kyle wins, he gets to game again. If not, he'll play ball outside for 6 months. Dan, despite being an ex-assassin, gives Kyle a fighting chance. It becomes a father-son moment of mutual respect. Finally, they reach Las Vegas and check into a luxury suite. Dan arranges a romantic dinner to confess everything to Jessica. Meanwhile, Kyle convinces his siblings to sneak out to the HyperX gaming arena. While Kyle is hailed as a superstar and joins a team with Valkyrie, McCaffrey's men are closing in. Dan's attempt at confession in a French restaurant fails miserably due to language barriers, awkward interruptions, and Jessica's growing arousal at discovering her husband speaks fluent French. He chickens out and delays the truth once more. But upstairs in their hotel room, things turn deadly. A team of assassins storms in. Dan fights them off using tequila bottles and clever distractions, But Jessica is taken hostage. When the captor calls him Sean, the truth finally breaks through. Dan rescues Jessica and explains that he was once a government assassin responsible for over 40 kills. The kids, still unaware, continue their gaming adventure, but when gunfire erupts, they finally believe him. Kyle vomits, Nina panics, and even Max is shaken. Dan reveals new passports and tells them they must disappear as different people. The betrayal hits hard. Jessica and the kids feel shattered by years of lies. She demands space, takes the kids, and leaves Dan outside, furious that he ever thought he could protect them without telling the truth. She contacts Gwen for help, who shockingly arrives in a private jet. Revealing she is McCaffrey's agent, and Dan's ex Jessica realizes too late she's been tricked. Now in McCaffrey's custody, the whole family becomes bait. Dan arrives at a crumbling hotel for a final showdown. McCaffrey, smug and charming, welcomes him like family, because he literally is. In a wild twist, McCaffrey reveals he's Dan's estranged father, making Kyle his grandson. With that twisted lineage out in the open, McCaffrey gives Dan a choice: return to his old life and leave his family forever, or let them die. Outnumbered and outgunned, Dan agrees to walk away. But his kids, now finally understanding the real danger, refuse to leave him behind. Jessica fights back in brutal fashion, using a dirty diaper as a weapon and knocking a goon to his death. Together, the family storms the hotel, rescuing Dan mid-escape. Gwen tries to seduce Dan again, but he rejects her. McCaffrey sends his goons after the family, and Kyle steps up, piloting a drone to guide his dad through the ambush. Dan, using his old assassin skills, eliminates the enemies with surgical precision. Jessica and Gwen engage in a vicious fight. Despite Gwen's superior training, Jessica's maternal rage turns the tide. Meanwhile, Dan and McCaffrey fight one-on-one, father against son, with emotional stakes as high as the physical ones. When all seems lost, Nina distracts McCaffrey with a heartfelt plea, allowing Dan to strike the final blow. The family is finally safe as the authorities arrive. 6 months later, Nina becomes a rising star journalist by exposing McCaffrey's Black Ops network. Dan starts a personal security training business with Augie. Jessica becomes a youth coach, and Kyle streams with the full support of his family. As they pack into an RV headed for Stanford, their new family tradition kicks off. No phones, no secrets, just love, growth, and the kind of memories you can't live stream. It's a wild road ahead, but for the first time in years, they're facing it together, stronger, wiser, and free.